I got you. Are you recording? So I am Melisa Yeager. I'm a logo and brand designer. I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which is the town that I actually grew up in, so I've lived here pretty much my whole life. I went to Penn State University and majored in graphic design, and then after college worked at a design and letterpress house where I mostly started out designing high-end wedding invitations for letterpress and foil and all the fancy print methods, which was really, really awesome and gave me a great view into how specialty print techniques work and how to design for those, which was really fun. But I realized the thing I loved about designing wedding invitations was that I got to create this beautiful handmade experience for my clients, but the thing I didn't love was that it was just, first of all, for one day, and second of all, brides can be even crazier than normal clients. So there was also a lot of politics involved with the family of the bride and the mother-in-law, and just a lot of etiquette and crazy drama to navigate on a daily basis, especially when you're designing invitations for women of the main line. So that was, I really enjoyed it, but then I got the chance within that company to work on a branding project, because they also did branding, and I just immediately fell in love with it and realized that I could create that same amazing, seamless experience for people that would last years and years on end instead of just being for one day. So I fell in love with it, then ended up working at a photography production company for a couple years where I was their kind of design lead and did a lot of design and brand work for commercial photographers. And then after 2 years of being there, I finally decided like I had kind of hit a ceiling and I wanted to go out on my own. So I currently own my own business and I adore it. So I had always, growing up, loved art and loved drawing, but I had kind of a three-way tie going on where I loved art, I loved music, and I loved writing. So I was at a loss throughout grade school and high school, like what can I possibly do that can incorporate these three things? So I had no idea that design was a thing until I was applying to colleges, and my mom said, you know, you should really look up this graphic art and design thing. It's pretty much you make art for companies. And I was like, okay, cool, that sounds awesome. So I looked it up, and then that's kind of when I figured out or found out about everything that the design industry was, and like really how vast and how much potential there was and how many different like niches there are within the design industry. And then that's when I really fell in love with it and kind of found my home there. And the awesome thing is that now, running my own business, I'm able to do the different things that I loved growing up. So, like, I do mostly content marketing for my business. Hi, bud. Hi. Is that your stick? Thank you. So I do mostly content marketing for my business, where I write a lot of blog posts and things like that. I created an online course, and I'm able to like work with music in terms of that. I'm like listening to music constantly, and I'm creating really cool, unique art for businesses that it's beautiful, but it's also like strategic and works for the business vision and their target audience. So it's really cool. So my first design job was working at the design letterpress house that was split into social design, which was weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, birthdays, big deal parties. And then the other half was branding. So I graduated and wanted to, most of the people I graduated with immediately went to New York, but I didn't want to go to New York because I had interned there the summer before I graduated, and it was awesome, but I grew up in a suburban town in Pennsylvania, and I just love where I grew up, so I wanted to live here. So I decided not to go to New York, and I spent pretty much the whole summer like working odd jobs and waiting to find the right company to work at. So I interviewed at a few different places, but I knew I actually interviewed at like a mutual funds company near here, and I got probably the best advice from the designer that I interviewed with. So we like went out to lunch, and he looked at my portfolio and everything and was like, yeah, you could definitely get a job here if you wanted one, but if you're trying to make cool work and like, you know, set the design world on fire, this isn't where you want to be. Like, basically, you shouldn't work here. So I'm very eternally grateful to him for giving me that advice, because it forced me to kind of really take a look at what are the places that I would actually want to work, who's doing cool work in the area that I want to be a part of, and where can I like feel like I can learn the most and be really challenged. So I found a couple companies that I really was interested in working at, and I ended up creating promos for myself where I sent them, high five, I sent them to the companies and tried to get a job that way. So the companies I applied with weren't even necessarily hiring, especially the company that I ended up getting a job with. They weren't hiring even a little bit, so they brought me on as an intern, and I worked as a paid intern there for 6 months before they hired me. So I think that was really essential, was basically putting myself out there, doing something to impress them out of the gate, and portray myself in as impressive of a light as I could, just to get myself in the door. And then beyond that, it was just about like working really hard and being really willing to learn and willing to try things and willing to work the hours it took to make a good impression there. And then I eventually like created a position for myself there and worked there for a couple years. So I know a lot of people have a really tough time with clients, and I've of course had those stories where people go above and beyond the amount of revisions they're supposed to have and things like that, but instead I'd like to share super positive client stories so people know that those people are out there. So I have a client I'm working with now who she found me before I went away on vacation, and she signed on before I went on vacation, paid the entire balance of her project. So normally I do 50% up front as a deposit, and then I do 50% halfway through, but she paid the entire project balance before I even left, because she doesn't like to have like outstanding bills, and she's just been like the most engaged, wonderful person. Just like super excited to work together, and like wants to like work with me specifically, which is awesome, and has added on like 2 new projects to our work together since then, one of which she's halfway through paying, and like we haven't even finished the first project. So she is an amazing person, and we just had our like intro call this past week. Yeah. When you work for yourself, time kind of becomes a blur, so I'm not really sure what day of the week it is and things like that, but it's been like a really positive experience, which is really refreshing when you're used to people trying to kind of like pull one over on you and get kind of nitpicky and like nickel and diming the time and things like that. But even just not working hourly anymore has opened a lot of doors for me to be a lot less frustrated while working with clients. But the client I'm working with now specifically, like the good ones are out there. Typical day. So a typical day for me is pretty much, I like to keep, I know people that work for themselves, you can kind of have whatever hours you want, but I like to stay on my husband's work schedule, so we get up at the same time, because I feel like when I get an earlier start to the day, I get more accomplished. So I get up around 6:30, get ready, make breakfast, all that kind of human stuff, and then I probably get upstairs to work by like 7:30, work from 7:30 to around 11, and then I normally take our dog on a walk, and then go do yoga, which is a really important way of like, I do hot yoga, and it's important for me because it keeps me in shape, and it like keeps me, it keeps my back pain at bay and things like that, because otherwise I'm just sitting or in one spot for too long. And that really wreaks havoc on your body, especially when your office is like across the hall from your bedroom. And shortest commute ever is amazing, but then you realize that you're really not leaving the house and you're not really going anywhere, like moving your body at all. So yoga does that for me, and it's also like my social outlet. And then after that, I'll come home, work until, it depends on the day, but like 4:30 to 6:30, somewhere in there, and then break for dinner and things like that. So that's the typical working hours. And then earlier in the week, I'm normally writing blog posts, and then I try to schedule all my client meetings in the afternoon and things like that. So I just finished my first online course. It's called Illustrator Essentials. It is a course teaching creative folks how to use and harness Adobe Illustrator for their brands. So it is both for small creative business owners and also for other designers. So it starts out with the basics, teaching people like about artboards and things like that, and how to edit, type, and things. But there's also more advanced lessons that deal with creating seamless patterns, creating custom icons, how to best quickly export all of your files and brand files for PNG, JPEG, all the things. And it's also including over 100 shortcuts for Illustrator, which have just saved me so much time over the years. So I created it to basically share all of that information. Initially it was for teaching my clients how to work with the Illustrator templates I was creating for them for their brands, but then I found that there were a lot of other designers asking me how I did certain things, like how was I creating seamless patterns, and how was I like pairing the pattern with different brand elements like logos and things like that, and creating those graphics, and then what were the rules behind like how I was creating custom icons and all that kind of stuff. So I found that it started as a course for clients and then kind of expanded and evolved into a course for mostly for designers now. So I'm really proud of it. It took me like a few months of just like heads down crazy hours to really knock it out, especially once I had chosen a launch date for it. I just had the first launch, which was all-encompassing and stressful but great, and it's opening again in January of 2018, so it's going to open every summer and winter, so just keep an eye out for it. And it's on MelisaYeager.com, you can find it. So for design inspiration, I love Dribbble and Pinterest for visual inspiration. I also go on the die line a lot. And then I also, as far as blogs, read different other entrepreneurs' blogs, so specifically Rowan Made and Ellen Company and Spruce Road. They're three personal friends of mine who run businesses, but they have my same kind of like female business owner who designs brands and like community over competition kind of thing. So all of their blogs are great, and they share really great helpful information about how they run their business and how they work with their clients. So all definitely great to check out. So something that I'm excited about is the new projects I have coming up. So my client I'm working with right now, who designs wedding invitations. So it's kind of an interesting flip that I started my career designing wedding invitations, and now I'm designing the branding for someone who does that. So I'm excited about that. I'm also planning on doing an illustration series based around like yoga postures, which I'm excited to play around with because I don't do quite as much illustration work, but I'm, as you can tell, looking to expand my brand into more kind of like slightly passive income arenas. So online courses, design resources, and then also products, but I plan on selling them on Society6 so that I don't have to handle the actual fulfillment, because that can be a job in itself, and I have a lot of respect for people that run physical product businesses. So for someone trying to break into the industry, I would say definitely create the work that you want to be doing, whether you have a client for it or not. So most people won't know if you're sharing a project just because you felt like making it or because someone actually hired you to do it. So if you want to be hired for a certain kind of project, go do that work, even if you can't find someone to hire you for it right now. And don't share work that you don't like creating or that you don't like the style of, because whatever you show people is the work you're going to be hired to do. So whatever you want to do, make that. So for the future of the design industry, I know that everyone for years has been saying that print is dead, but I don't agree. I think that people still love something tactile and something that feels handmade. So especially even if it's not a physical printed product, while a lot of my clients still want printed products, I think even just creating something that feels handmade, even if it's digital, is really important to me. So I love creating that kind of like timeless, unique quality brand that people feel like they're not exactly sure when it was created, and it feels like it could have been yesterday, or it feels like it could have been like 20 years ago, and it's just that kind of timeless design that'll really stick with a company. And I'm hoping with the design industry, I think that there's a lot more people like me on the forefront that are starting their own businesses and getting into freelance, especially now that the online digital world and social media and everything makes it so easy for all of us to be connected. So even if people aren't going and starting their own businesses and freelancing, it's so easy to be like a remote employee now that I foresee a lot more companies taking on designers that way that aren't necessarily in their same location or same city. And I'm hoping that I'm able to help some other freelancers and business owners just by like providing advice and like just letting them know how my experience has been so far. So I'm hoping like more people going out chasing their dreams within reason, and that that the design industry continues to like grow and support each other rather than being like catty and whatever people think design Twitter is. So next up, I am actually shifting my brand to be more in the education realm. So I've loved creating a course so much, and it's been so much fun to both like help other designers in the community, but also like make an excuse for me to hang out with other people when I work by myself all day. So I'm going to be creating additional courses. I'm planning on doing a series of workshops this fall, teaching things like the one concept approach and how I price my work, and how I convert things like the client questionnaires into brand strategy, which then becomes the logo and things like that. So I'm going to be doing a series like that to see what people actually want to learn, and then I'm going to be creating my next course from there. And I'm also going to be doing some like design resources that are going to be the brand strategy template and things like that, as well as some stuff for small business owners. So definitely keep an eye out. Oh, thank you. Thank you, sweetie. I know. You ready? He never plays fetch, and of course right now he wants to play fetch, where I... Of course you are. Of course you are. It's like, it's because you're not playing, Mom, and I want to play. Are you going to keep doing this? Are you serious right now? Well, this will be your good blooper footage.